All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. What's going on, people? How you doing? Hello, and how are you? George Robeson, getting up in the chats early. We're live on YouTube, Substack, and on Odyssey. Please get familiar with the alternative channels, forms, please. Like Substack and Odyssey. I'm getting a lot of followers on Substack, so thanks everyone who's following me on Substack. I appreciate it. Word. Malcolm's here. What's up? If you're watching on Odyssey, give us a chat or a what's up. All right. Excuse me. Okay. Well, I don't know if it would be surprising to hear this particular story. Thank you, Malcolm. I appreciate that. I don't know why it would be surprising to hear this particular story of Trump wanting to restart nuclear tests. Why? Do we not know how nuclear bombs work? My first question. Is there some new and improved nuclear bomb that they need to test out? Would be, I guess, somewhat of a logical answer, even though the logic escapes me. Why do you need to test these things? I just don't. I mean, I think we know how they work. I think, yeah. I don't know, man. I'm not sure. Well, let's look at the story anyways. U.S. to restart nuclear tests. Amid global tensions, the United States government has announced plans to restart nuclear weapons testing for the first time since 1992. According to the White House, the decision is aimed at ensuring national security readiness in an era of renewed great power competition. President Donald Trump authorized the Department of Defense, or War, whatever he's calling it these days, to begin preparations immediately, citing the need to maintain deterrence against adversaries like Russia and China. Sure. The move has sparked a wide range of reactions from strong support among defense hawks to warnings from arms control advocates who argue that testing could reignite a global nuclear race. The development comes at a time of heightened international tension as the U.S. faces challenges on multiple fronts, from Europe's ongoing instability to China's assertiveness in the Pacific. The question now is whether this marks a turning point in American defense policy or a risky return to Cold War tactics. Fantastics. What prompted, let me see. The announcement came amid growing evidence that America's nuclear rivals are expanding their arsenals. Analysts estimate that China's nuclear stockpile has doubled over the last 5 years, reaching roughly 600 operational warheads, while Russia continues to develop new delivery systems, including its Poseidon nuclear-powered torpedo. These developments have raised concerns in Washington about the long-term reliability of the U.S. nuclear deterrent, which has relied exclusively on computer simulations and subcritical tests for over 3 decades. Pentagon officials argue that live testing may now be necessary to verify the performance of aging warheads and modernized systems. I mean, I feel like it's par for the course on many levels. I'm actually surprised that we have stopped testing for that long. And I guess, the testing ended around the time when the Soviet Union fell. So maybe, there was a perceived, decrease in tensions, I suppose. And at the time, there was a bit of a détente between Russia and the U.S. after Russia fell and agreed to destroy a lot of their nuclear weapons and also, keep the ones that they had kind of under wraps. I don't know. I still feel like there's plenty of cooperation, and maybe there's, if you want to go more deeply conspiratorial, that there's coordination between Russia, China, and the U.S. in keeping this like feigned hostility going. But they are still, sovereign countries, and they at any moment could do whatever they want, as we generally do whatever we want at any moment. So you never know when the breaking point is going to come. You keep hearing that Putin is, hopping mad about arms being used in the Ukraine war. About every 2-3 months, like clockwork, he comes out and goes, "Oh, this is a grave escalation." But we never know when the point is going, when the line is going to be crossed, when the tipping point could happen. When the grave escalation turns into an actual conflagration. What's up, Odyssey folks? Thanks for watching on Odyssey. I see you. Substack folks. It also makes sense in a world that is, unraveling economically, politically, and, environmentally as well. Oh, I didn't even post. Oh, did I need to post that? I guess I didn't. I did need to post. We're live twice. Okay. I don't know. It's bananas. And we have a big orange monkey in charge. And everything's bananas. Obsolete Optics sent me this very interesting video about flock cameras. I've been hearing there's like a lot of chatter around flock cameras. Yeah. Malcolm says we're in the final chest beating stage of pre-war. Maybe. Unfortunately, I have my fears around that, especially if there's something that triggers a more instability, like really like a big harsh economic downturn, or could really hack people up. It's not really a great term to use. My bad. But I'm really hacked off. All right, let's watch this video about flock cameras. They're everywhere. It's kind of no escaping them. And the implications of like how widespread they are is that, well, just listen to this story. I think it's a good one.
In Colorado about a month ago. And as she's on the way to her tailor, there was a theft there was a woman who was driving to an appointment with her tailor in Colorado about a month ago. And as she's on the way to her tailor, there was a theft that took place at an unrelated person's house. She had a doorbell camera, which meant they would have been able to see who did it, right? Makes it easy. Should be able to catch him. No. The police chose to have ChatGPT and a telephone pole do the work for them. They looked through and they saw that a flock camera captured the license plate of somebody in a green Rivian, which was the person who went to their tailor. They went to her door with a summons, and the police officer said the following.
There is zero doubt. I wouldn't have come here unless I was 100% sure.
When the woman asked to be able to see the footage that demonstrates that she is guilty, they would not play her the footage.
I'm not going to extend you any courtesy of showing you a video when I don't need.
But I can show you videos.
No, you cannot.
She says that she can show the officer video footage demonstrating that she was not there at the place and time that they claim that she was there, and he interrupts her to say, no, you cannot. You are not allowed to prove your innocence. No. And he actually said this afterwards.
You know we have cameras in that town, and you can't get a breath of fresh air in or out of that place without us knowing, correct?
If you want people to move to your area and pay into the tax base that pays the police, you might not want to say out loud, and I quote, you can't breathe in this town without being surveilled, because that's just not the flex that you think it is. If a sheriff comes to my door, and I am far from an ACAB anti-police type of person, and said, you can't breathe in this town without us seeing it, I'm the fuck out of there. Like, my house is going on Zelle the next day. He refuses to show the doorbell footage, and he issues a summons with the December date. She's actually pretty smart. She goes about this as well as she can, and she creates a Google timeline showing all of her movements. The CCTV video of her entering and leaving. She shows all the footage from her dash cam, which shows that she was driving while this took place. The GPS records from her vehicle that show that she was not at the scene of the crime when the crime took place. The photo of the outfit that she wore that day, which is different from the outfit of the person that was captured in the doorbell camera, and witness statements that demonstrate that she was somewhere else when this occurred. She did not submit this to the sergeant who visited her. She submitted this to the police chief, who then immediately dismissed everything. Charges dismissed, summons voided. There was no explanation provided. There was no apology provided. They had ChatGPT on a telephone pole try to do their job for them. And if this woman did not keep track of everything she did that day, then she might have actually been screwed. What that police officer said when he said there's a 100% chance, no doubt, what he's actually saying is, we are filming you, and what you need to do is you need rebut ours in case we get it wrong as we're recording all of your movements throughout the day. The answer to a surveillance state being installed without your consent in your city or your state or your country is not to start surveilling yourself all the time. Well, I appreciate that this woman had all this information on herself. She had her GPS coordinates. She had her Google timeline. She had all this information. How many people take pictures that are time-stamped with their clothing every single day, just in case they're going to be accused of a robbery that they did not commit? The answer is not to record what you do every single day, to the point where we are now spying and surveilling ourselves in order to be able to respond to this. The answer is to not have this surveillance apparatus to begin with. Many of you have been going to your city council hearings, you've been emailing your representatives, and you've been telling them that you do not wish to pay to live in an authoritarian Chinese-style police state, where you're being watched every given moment by an AI surveillance camera. that can be accessed at the click of a button without a warrant by any Tom, Dick, or Harry in city government. You don't want that. You think it's a bad thing. And you've tried to make your voice heard. And as you could see in Denver, your voice was ignored. Unfortunately, across the country, your voices are being ignored. If you're going to stop being surveilled all the time, if you want these cameras to truly go away, you're going to have to start taking a little bit of a different approach. You're going to have to try a little bit harder. You're going to have to put in a little bit more work. That's going to be necessary.
Blade Runner.
Unless you want people in your local community that have power over you to be bragging like this. I am not an ACAB person. It would be impossible with the contents of my channel over the past 13 years to brand me as one. This is not okay. In no world is what that man is bragging about okay. We have a Fourth Amendment in this country, and it means something. And while there will be simps that try to pretend that we don't, or that try to twist it into claiming it means something that it doesn't, it does mean something. We have the right to not be spied on everywhere that we go for the rest of our life. Push back against this now. Push back hard. Because if you don't, this is going to be here forever. If there's anything that you can learn over the past 20 years, whether it's private or public, when any sort of type of surveillance or privacy violating tool comes to light and starts getting used on a regular basis, it never rolls back. This is too important. There is too much potential for abuse, and clearly there are far too many errors. It cannot be trusted. It should not be trusted, and it needs to go away. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. You know what you have to do.
Lewis 2028. So there was a story the other day that I saw that, you know, it was kind of a headline: UK rolls back the 15-minute city thing. And people were talking about, because they, you know, some people were saying it's because a group of monkey wrenchers who call themselves the Blade Runners were out like cutting down cameras. So I'm like, you know, not encouraging anybody to do that, but I'm also not upset that it's happening. So, really quickly, I tried to look it up, the story, and there were, you know, as soon as I saw it, I looked up a bunch of stories that said, no, England's not getting rid of this 50-minute city. That's misinformation, which made me immediately suspicious. Whenever there's a story about something that gets a little traction, and then there's a bunch of like kind of coordinated news items about said story, I'm like, oh, you guys are kind of proving the story right a little bit. I mean, apparently the UK has moved away from trying to address things as a 15-minute city because it has a negative connotation. Again, depending on how it's done, I'm not mad at the idea of, you know, the idea of the 15-minute city is that people will drive less, that things will be local, that people will get out of their cars and bike or walk to their nearby, you know, it's actually a thing that's happening in the US, but there's no name for it. But there is a return to, you know, we've kind of gone away from the suburbanization of life, right? Where everybody moves. Oh, it sucks because it's so expensive to live here. Everybody has moved, you know, far out of the city center where things are more affordable, and then they commute in. So it's like the traffic is hell, and everything is just worse because everybody lives, you know, an hour outside of the city, you know, 2 hours. A lot of cities are like that. Is Timothy the only like? Is anybody liking the video? Like the video. Come on, people. Let's get it together. Like the video on Odyssey. Come on, people. Let's get it together. Malcolm liked it. I'm halfway kidding, guys, because YouTube just doesn't really like help the situation. So if anything, they're suppressing the views, suppressing the likes, and suppressing everything. So whatever. What am I saying? Oh, in the US, even though people live outside of the city and it's very expensive, there's this push to kind of like make these very walkable kind of areas. You know, they're trying to like re-urbanize / gentrify certain parts of the town, which is, you know, kind of laughable in LA because nothing is really, you know, there's not a lot of areas that are walkable. There are some, not a lot. I live in a very not walkable area. But there is a push to do that, to kind of reestablish these kind of like walkable kind of areas where people can basically live somewhere, and like, you know, downtown LA, I guess, could be an example of that, where somebody could live somewhere and like be close to literally everything they need within a couple of blocks, and they don't have to like get in their car to do basic stuff, right? Anyways, there's a few articles I saw. England isn't giving up on a 15-minute city despite social media claims. Again, how does this tie in with Flock? Well, because it's part of what people are upset about, is being surveilled all the time. And the idea is that a 15-minute city will be an area where you can't really kind of escape. You know, it's being sold as a place where everything is walkable and accessible and you don't have to drive your car. But what it's being couched as is a place where everybody's going to be kind of confined to a certain area, and they're going to be surveilled all the time by Flock cameras. That's the conspiracy about 15-minute cities. Here's an article. Why has the 15-minute city taken off in Paris but become controversial in the UK? 15-minute city has become a toxic phrase in the UK, so controversial the city of Oxford has stopped using it. Transport minister has spread discredited conspiracy theories about the urban planning scheme. People are talking about it being part of enacting climate lockdowns to imprison people in their neighborhoods. Across the channel, Parisians are enjoying their 15-minute neighborhoods. The French are stereotyped for their love of protest, so the lack of uproar around the redesign of their capital is in stark contrast to the frenzied response in Oxford. Anyways, they just don't have the fear around it. I'm not going to read this whole article about it. I'm just kind of going, you know, tripping through some headlines a little bit. Here's someone talking about it. As a 15-minute district, it is incredible. He's talking about Clichy Batignolles. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's incredible. It is beautiful. It has proximity, social mixing. 50% of the inhabitants live in social housing, 25% in middle class, and 25% own their own homes. That's the thing, is I've seen, you know, all through Europe, there's these examples of reimagining, you know, urban areas as less car. And Paris is one of those, right? They've made an attempt to reduce traffic especially in the city of Paris, but and a lot of European cities that they're redesigning. And again, they're kind of doing that here to some extent, in a little weird, sneaky ways, but on a lot of levels don't make sense. But they're trying to reduce traffic in certain areas and make places more walkable, or encourage people to walk or ride their bikes. Like here, they're putting in a bunch of bike lanes, and a lot of streets have been reduced from 2 lanes to 1 lane, accommodating a bike lane and parking or whatever. And my annoyance with that is, why don't you're just kind of creating more traffic jams for people who are driving, and there's not a lot of biking here still. I mean, yeah, people bike, but biking is still not a thing in LA. It's not like a thing that people do as a commuting kind of a thing. So if you really want to encourage it, I would prefer that they just shut down whole streets. And what was really actually during COVID, one of the coolest things that came out of COVID was everybody had these like outdoor patios outside of they reduce the lanes of the street, and then they would have, instead of parking, they would have these like patios coming out of the restaurants outside, which actually was like an amazing thing, right? It was like encourage people to be kind of created like a festive air, and people were like out in the streets, like dining, drinking, walking around, hanging out, talking to each other. There was less traffic, less, there were still people in their cars, but I don't know, something about it was like they had done away with parking in order to put these patio things in. So in a way, it was like less cars, more people, more like people outside talking to each other. It was kind of amazing. And so after COVID went away over the last few years, they've been slowly getting rid of all those outdoor patios and people moving back inside, and now opening up everything for like more parking and cars and stuff. And honestly, it's not an improvement. So Malcolm says the 15-minute city is still a bit of an undercurrent, not mainstream for many people here. It's still being quietly pushed. Sure. I mean, I think it's more about the surveillance than anything. I have no problems with getting people out of their cars. I have no problems with reducing traffic. I have no problems with blocking entire portions of the city off. And I would prefer if they just blocked entire streets off and just said, hey, everybody just walk here. You can park, a couple blocks away and just walk in. Like, don't even have the traffic like snarl that you have because you've reduced the lanes, right? And like, what's the point? I'm just not a fan of the surveillance, and I think that's still going to go on whether you have cars or not. You're going to have surveillance. So why don't we address it as such? And again, I've seen places in Europe that have been transformed into like walkable, bikeable areas. I have a family member who lives in Amsterdam, and they're like, you never need a car here. You never need a car. You can bike everywhere, walk everywhere, take a train if you want to go. Like, there's no reason for anybody to have a car. I'm like, that's amazing. But here, people are like, they want to take away your personal vehicle. No, they're just way more evolved than we are. They just don't see the need for that. Owning a vehicle is not freedom, my friend. Haven't you realized that yet? It's a trap. Owning a vehicle is a trap. It's an economic trap, and it's also an environmental death trap. Right? You get a car, you have to keep it up, you have to maintain it, you have to pay for insurance, you have to pay to register it, you have to, pay parking tickets if you get those, you have to maybe pay to store it somewhere if you don't have a place to park. Like, it is a trap. And honestly, we're not, it's kind of a schizophrenic thing that we're doing here, in that, the US always encourages more cars and more car driving. Like, we're constantly widening freeways here. we're constantly renewing or rebuilding or building more freeways here. We're constantly, encouraging more car traffic everywhere, while at the same time, in the middle of the city, we're like, well, how about we just add some bike lanes? Like you're just paying lip service to caring about the problem, but like you're actually encouraging the problem while you're saying that you care about the problem, which I'm like, I'm all for, people not having to ever drive a car and like having areas, people being able to live in a city and not have to get in a freaking car. Anyways, I've gone on too long about that. Do any of my English friends have do y'all hear about Blade Runners, or are you, is the first rule of Blade Runners never to talk about Blade Runners? But Blade Runners are an activist group which emerged in 2023 to oppose London's ultra-low emission zone, again, which would be conflated with the 15-minute city expansion by vandalizing the automatic number plate recognition cameras used to enforce the scheme. This group, which claims to have stolen or damaged hundreds of cameras, justifies its actions as unpaid voluntary work for the community. Yeah, so I guess the cameras are used to enforce it. I'm not really sure how. Maybe to catch people violating whatever. Let's see. The ultra-low emission zone, which aims to curb congestion and air pollution by making drivers of certain vehicles pay a daily fee. Pay a daily fee. Extreme opposition is gathering steam. It's so hilarious that it's hilarious that they're turning it into a fee, though. Like, we're just going to charge you, we're not going to discourage you from driving your car, I guess. We're just going to charge you a fee. We're just going to tax you. It's ridiculous. That, again, here, they are not concerned about pollution, right? Anymore, right? They feigned like they were. They started having carpool lanes, which were like, well, if you have two or three people in your car, you can get in these lanes and, supposedly go faster than everybody else, avoid traffic. Well, in a lot of instances, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just as congested as the regular lanes. But most of the freeways have now been converted into pay to drive lanes, right? And if you have the machine and you have people in your car and you are a carpool, you can get in the lane and drive for free, but you have to have the thing. So it's a whole money making. They've just turned it into a money making scheme. So it's like, well, you can drive in these lanes if you're a carpool, if you have the box, if you're signed up with the program. But also, if you're not a carpool and you just want to pay some money to go in the fast lane, you can do that too. They're not concerned with lessening traffic or with emissions or with helping the climate or what. They're just concerned about raking in more money, which this sounds like the ultra low emissions thing. They're really not trying to tamp down on driving. They're just trying to figure out a way to charge people money. And also surveil people, right? At the same time, we're going to surveil you and we're going to charge you money. I don't think for a second that all the cameras that are involved in the pay to get in the carpool lane scheme here in LA, right? All those cameras are well, you probably have a couple of cameras that are just pointed out to the regular lanes, just collecting, license plate data on people. All right, what else is going on? They're trying to get SNAP benefits turned on before the 1st of November. They're trying. I don't know if this is, clearly people are concerned about this, right? And clearly there's been an outcry for good reason, right? Like a lot of people depend on these benefits. And Bernie Sanders here saying 15 Republican senators have now joined all 47 members of Democratic caucus on legislation to extend SNAP benefits during the shutdown. In all, 62 senators are on this bill. Okay, that's good. I mean, we'll see if this gets if it gets play enough to get the SNAP benefits turned back on before Saturday. Hold on one second. Here is Broadway Baby 2 on Substack saying Dems just tried to pass a bill to fund WIC and SNAP. There's only 3 days left before millions of Americans go hungry. Republicans blocked it. They won't even allow emergency funds to be used to feed their own citizens. It's also important to remember that the big, beautiful bill they want includes cuts to SNAP. Healthcare isn't the only thing on the chopping block. Food is too. Salt Laker says Bernie still owes me $27. Yeah, I think I probably forked over $27 at one time. Boy, do I feel like a heel. Well, there's been a lot of a ton of people are talking about this. There's a lot of people telling people to fund alternative food sources for people, food banks and whatnot, and that is clearly a good step, just in case. Lots of people posting videos about going in and just shoplifting food if you need to. I think plenty of people out there understand the situation and are empathetic to it. There's some, rat bastards out there who are not empathetic, who are just like, yeah, go ahead and starve. Pull yourself up from the bootstrap. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps while you're starving. Hardy har har. But yeah, there's an outcry. Fresh Air says cut Congress benefits, cut senators' health care. Yeah. How about an emergency bill to tax every billionaire a couple mil? Send it over, use guys. Anyways, it's whether this is all theater or not, I don't know. Hopefully they get something done. Here's an interesting post from Gyros. And we were talking, I was talking a little bit about this at the beginning. Gyros says life is miserable today because the USSR fell. It was the only force that truly challenged global capitalism, the counterweight that kept US imperialism in check. When the threat of socialism disappeared, the capitalists stopped pretending to care. The concessions workers once won are now being stripped away by the same greed that defines this decaying system. What do y'all think about that? You think that's true? I mean, I feel like that's a really good point. A lot of people think that China and the US were created by the deep state to be, controlled opposition, I guess. And maybe that's true. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about every single conspiracy, and I cannot verify it personally, but it doesn't, Russia hasn't been communist for years, for decades, which is funny because people still act like they're communist. They're not communists. They're just a regular, fake democracy like everybody else, And China is I don't know what China is. China is a fascist state. I mean, they're basically, capitalists with a bunch of technocratic authoritarianism, and they have some socialist leanings, like they do, give people food and housing and right, they try to make sure people have jobs and places to live, which is more, and high-speed rail, which is more than we can do for our people. We can't do anything for our people. Why? Because government is bad. You don't want anything from don't ever take anything from the government. It's bad. We can't ever have any social programs because the fucking moron spawn of Rush Limbaugh have fucking taken over everything, including alternative news space. So there's that. So now we're just fully unvarnished fascism, without any, with zero socialist leaning, just because there's just been this steady wall of, anti-communist, anti-socialist, whatever you want to call it, propaganda. And that kind of rhetoric is, is spreading. And it's not helping, really. It's not really helping anybody, is it? Yeah. All right. Here's another post from Broadway Baby 2. I miss the old days when we all agree that a drunken former Fox News host should not be allowed to unilaterally bomb boats in international waters. I miss the days when folks would agree that without proof, that is a war crime. 4 more boats were bombed today. More than 50 people dead. Yeah, I mean, the mask has been slipping for a long time. And the mask is now pretty much off about the fact that we're just a criminal, unhinged banana republic. I can't see that. I can't get that link off Substack, Mr. Wizard, man of many names. Reflect the Sun says, I bought a puppet effigy of Bernie on Etsy back in the day. The irony is not lost. I mean, these folks are freaking useless. You know, they're really, things are just getting worse. And you know, they're really not fighting all that. If they're fighting for you, it's really with a very limp wrist, with a very flaccid stick. Take that. Oh, take that, Republicans. Stop being so mean. They're just really not trying that hard. And I just, you know, it's so obvious. I don't know why people still think they actually are doing anything or actually care. They're just empire managers. And they're doing their job by being, you know, the controlled opposition in the place. Oh, I mean, I can't get it because I can't see it. For some reason, it's not showing up in the chat. I don't know. All the chats disappeared on Substack. Boo. Let's see. Okay, let's watch this from Greg Reese. I don't know if anybody's following 3i Atlas. I don't know. I'm not really following it. I kind of don't really care until it turns into something that's real. I don't know. But here's Greg Reese's take, which is, you know, somewhat interesting.
Three-Eye Atlas was discovered on July 1st by the Atlas telescope in Chile. It originated from outside our solar system and will exit permanently after perihelion today, October 30th, 2025. Three-Eye Atlas is the size of Manhattan, which makes it too big for a typical comet. Its path through our solar system has it skimming right by Venus, Mars, and Jupiter in a fine-tuned path that has a 0.005% chance of being natural. It is producing its own light, and it has a sunward-facing tail glowing in front of it, which is very unusual for a comet. Based on these details, Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb suggests the object could be artificial. But the symbolism behind it goes much further. Comets and other planetary objects in the sky have been seen as way signs for a new age, a new era, or great change for thousands of years of written history. In the Bible, there is wormwood, which appears 7 times in the Old Testament and once in Revelation. It is associated with bitterness and death. Ancient Hindu writings speak of Dhumaketu, a fiery comet marking the end of an age and the dawn of the next cosmic cycle. The Mayans wrote of the Kukulkan comet that would be seen during the shift into the New World. And the Hopi wrote of the blue star Kachina that would usher in the fifth world after a purification. The cataclysmic shifts recorded in the Epic of Gilgamesh from ancient Mesopotamia involves a passing planetary object called Nibiru. Nostradamus described comets and objects in the sky marking the birth of a new age. And the 3-eye in 3-eye Atlas points to the third eye, the third ventricle in the brain, and the awakening of consciousness in a human being, which is what the astrology suggests as well. During its perihelion, there will be a grand water trine, a rare event where 3 planets in the 3 water signs form an equilateral triangle. Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, the 3 most influential planets, will all be in water signs. This symbolizes cleansing, purification, adaptability, and the transformative power of flow. In Western occult philosophy, comets are active agents of spiritual forces that drive human evolution by introducing new cosmic impulses into our planetary system. Overall, comets represent the creative forces that disrupt earthly routine and introduces new qualities and impulses to human evolution. Just as a woman brings a new child into the family, the comet injects a new dynamic into human spiritual growth. According to the teachings of Rudolf Steiner, as a comet passes over us, it collects harmful spiritual substances, which are then carried away and transformed. As they pass, they also introduce new spiritual energies that accelerate humanity's evolutionary process. But that's not to say it makes things easier. He said that the 1910 appearance of Halley's Comet would bring a new impulse that could deepen materialism and distract humanity from its spiritual path. And in 1913, the Federal Reserve Bank was born, the epitome of spiritual rot. Steiner taught that humanity's evolutionary leap requires the individual's deliberate choice, and that one must persist in the shadow of darkness in order to raise their consciousness. Greg Reese reporting.
All right. I don't know. That was kind of ho-hum to me. I did already watch that. I was kind of like, okay. I mean, some interesting facts in there and whatnot. But I don't care. 3-eye Atlas is a complete and utter distraction until it becomes real, serious or something. Until it, I don't know. There's video of some little guys on top of the 3-eye Atlas going like, hey. And Trump's all, they're doing the YMCA. Yeah, yawned big time. It was a big time yawner from Greg, but whatever. Usually things are pretty interesting. Last thing we'll talk about, horrible story from a doctor who was imprisoned and by the Israelis. My hands were cuffed behind my back. My eyes were blindfolded. My legs shackled. Then they released the dogs on us, each weighing around 80 or 90 kilos. You fall on your head while blindfolded and your body starts spinning. 1 or 2 of the soldiers come and start kicking you with their military boots while you're on the ground. Dr. Ahmed Mahana was taken from Al-Awda Hospital to Israel's Sde Timan torture camp. Emaciated and visibly shaken, he told Channel 4 there were interrogation sessions lasting between 2 and 8 hours. They accused me of failing to comply with army orders to evacuate the hospital. Secondly, they said you had defamed Israel on international forums in the media. Whoa. Is that what it takes to get kidnapped by the IDF? You just have to defame them? More than 400 healthcare workers from Gaza have been detained by Israel. Around 80 remain in custody. And he does look very, very emaciated. We'll listen to this and then we'll wrap the show up.
A hero's welcome. for a doctor freed from a nightmare. Released as part of the ceasefire agreement, Dr. Ahmed Mahana was greeted by colleagues from Gaza's Al-Awda hospital after being held in detention by Israeli forces for nearly 2 years. Now back at home with his family, he's recovering from his ordeal that included repeated episodes of torture.
My hands were cuffed behind my back, my eyes were blindfolded and legs shackled. Then they released the dogs on us, each weighing around 80 or 90 kilos. You fall on your head while blindfolded, and your body starts spinning. One or two of the soldiers come and start kicking you with their military boots while you're on the ground.
Until he was detained, Dr. Mahana led his hospital's response to Israel's onslaught. Like many medical centers, Al-Awda was struck itself, with several medics killed. And when the hospital was surrounded by Israeli soldiers in December 2023, Dr. Mahana was taken to the notorious Sidi Taman detention center.
There were interrogation sessions lasting between 2 and 8 hours. They accused me of failing to comply with army orders to evacuate the hospital. Secondly, they said you had defamed us on international forums in the media. Thirdly, that you have armed men in the hospital.
Dr. Mahana says he never allowed Hamas members inside the hospital.
Jesus.
But his captors treated him and other detainees with contempt.
Fifthly,
their talk was always insults. They said we were responsible for what happened, that we allowed Hamas to do what it did. And if you say you're not from Hamas, they'd say, then why did you allow Hamas to exist? Why didn't you reject it?
More than 400 healthcare workers from Gaza were detained over the past 2 years in the sweeping raids carried out by Israeli forces in the territory. Also amongst them was Dr. Mohammed Abu Musa, seen here in Nasser Hospital, where amongst the patients he's treating following an Israeli airstrike are his own children. He searches for his youngest son, only to find him dead. Dr. Abu Musa was detained a few months later. One of his captors played on the traumatic memory of the loss of his son.
One of the officers tried to mess with my mind. He asked me, "What's the story of the curly-haired boy you were looking for in the hospital?" It seemed they had seen a video about it. I panicked and became extremely anxious. I was afraid something else had happened to my family.
Human rights groups have gathered testimony of the widespread abuse of Gazan detainees, none of whom have been charged by Israel with any crime.
If you tried to rest or move, you'd be punished. The punishment was to kneel without even a thin mattress, directly on the ground, which was extremely painful. Sometimes you had to stand for hours with your hands raised, and some young men would lose consciousness and collapse.
So why inside of your hospital there were hostages?
At least 80 healthcare workers from Gaza remain in Israeli detention, including Dr. Hossam Abu Safia. Israel claims detainees are not abused, but 2 medics have died in custody. Back in Gaza, doctors like Ahmed Mahana are not just wondering how to rebuild their lives, but the Strip's devastated healthcare system.
All right. Let's just pray that humans stop being so goddamn depraved and disgusting. All right, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching on alternative platforms. Y'all rock, rock, rock. Hopefully all my new subscribers on Substack will start tuning in to the show. Got a bunch of new subscribers, but I haven't really seen them interact with me or anything. But you know, these things take time, I guess. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. I'll see you tomorrow. Regular time, 12 p.m. I'll be here. Until next time, beware the bear.
Mm-hmm.